It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.
Welcome to another amazing episode on the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. It's me again, your host, Chinyelu Akpa, and it's good to have you here once again. Continuing the conversation on sustainable partnership for effective EdTech design, I have with me on the show today an amazing guest, the program manager at the Education Partnership Center with extensive experience in program management, monitoring and evaluation, qualitative research, and project management. She has led various projects and provided technical support to organizations implementing innovative education interventions across sub-Saharan Africa. She's also responsible for the technical planning of the annual Pan-African Education Innovation Summit and has supported programs funded by several prominent organizations such as the FCDO, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, just to mention a few. Welcome with me today, Utibe Henshaw. Hello, Utibe. It's good to have you here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Aha! We're speaking partnerships.
Yeah, we are.
And who else to discuss partnership than the chef at the Education Partnership Center? So tell us, what is the TEP about and what do you do?
Right, so TEP is the Education Partnership Center. So we refer to ourselves as Nigeria's pioneer education partnership firm. Really, we work at the nexus of education system actors, whether public, private, or non-state actors, to essentially deliver quality education for all African children. That's our driving force, and we work with partners across the ecosystem. And so partnership collaboration is a very big thing with us, as you can tell by the P in our name. So yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah, so with us discussing, how to get sustainable partnership for effective EdTech design and the obvious experience, and the hats the TP Center wears. Let us know how you've been able to bridge the divide or the gap between the public, private and non-profit sectors in the EdTech space, primarily because we know that it is heavily politicized. There's so much hierarchy. There are do's and don'ts. Everybody has separate interests. Our guests last week spoke about how everybody wants to play on their own and not work with anyone. So let us know, how have you been able to do it, or what do you do?
Absolutely. So TEP Center, we one of the things that we've really done well is convening power. So you referred to the Pan-African Education Innovation Summit that we would organize, NEDIS. And NEDIS, evolved from the need to bring stakeholders together. So we started our work early years, around 2013, trying to identify what is innovative in the education sector. And we defined innovation as anything that improves quality of and access to quality education in Nigeria. And what that project told us is that quite a number of people that are not the core private sector, for-profit organizations or government, working in small silos, doing interesting things to improve quality to education. So we decided to take it a step further and connect actors to actors, connect implementers to other implementers they could collaborate with, connect implementers to funders, connect implementers to government actors. And that's how NEDIS was born. So over the years, we have now diffused the NEDIS platform. We've had our monthly webinar series where we have these virtual conversations in an ongoing community. We have the EdTech. The EdMeets is the bridge builder, excuse me. That's a difficult phrase to say. But yeah, so one of the first iterations of EdMeets was EdTech, where we got, policymakers, decision makers, tech entrepreneurs to sit in the same room and have, say, an exchange of ideas, and problems and solutions. So that's one of the core things that we've done. And of course, we have also dipped our toe in the EdTech space ourselves, implementing a couple of tech-powered education interventions.
Thank you. So what you've done is the convening powers, you've said,
Absolutely.
bringing who is who together to see what everybody is doing and see how they can broker partnerships. So how do you then evaluate the effectiveness of these partnerships? If you're connecting actor to actor, implementer to implementer, do you just connect them and cast them to the Philistines? How do you ensure that they are effective, that you're having solutions or products or policies or frameworks that are drawn up from these partnerships?
That's a really good question. I mean, being in this room today is an example of how one of those partnerships have gone right. Because Co-Creation Hub is, the tech juggernaut that it is. But, many years ago, TEP Center and Co-Creation Hub were on the same side of being grantees of a education program. I think it was MacArthur Foundation that was funding at the time. And so we've seen a lot of examples from people connecting at our NEDIS events and gone on to do interventions together. We have written about some of these in our newsletter, our NICE newsletter. So we have an online community, the National Innovation Collaborative for Education, which is a mouthful, but it's nice. Nice. So you can, if you're in a nice community, you would have seen, how some of these partnerships have scaled. But you make a very important point, and I think that where we're going to as the connector is to begin to tell the stories in a more organic way, to show evidence of how partnerships can lead to scaled solutions to, provide quality education, improve learning outcomes for more children, and to strengthen education systems as we have them in the country.
Okay, so how do we then bring this down, to a more granular form, right? How do we get more players in the EdTech space into a nice community, for instance, right? Because we know people are building super solutions sometimes, and might just be at that really small nuclear level where they have access to no one. They don't know how to scale. They don't know how to put this product and their solutions in front of people. They might even have good solutions, but have not really rigorously tested, to be sure that this proof, this really works, evidence of use. So what do we do? Because we're speaking partnerships. So how do we support these little startups, individuals, to give them the all-round support that is required to have effective solutions? How do we get them students? How do we get them teachers? How do we give them funds? How do we put them in front of the government to know these are solutions that are working? How do we get them into NICE?
That is a very, very complex question. And if I had the answer, I'll probably be...
You'd have shut down this by now.
No, but it's a very important question. One of my pet peeves with EdTech generally is sometimes these solutions are tech-led as opposed to education-led, which is what led us to organize EdMeets, the EdMeets Tech event, and those even subsequent iterations, of the NEDIS summits. I think that we do need to... earlier I spoke about identifying, who is doing what, and then connecting them to each other. So we need to continue more of that. TEP Center, we've had the privilege of implementing something that's innovative in the sense that it hadn't been done before in Nigeria, which is the citizen-led assessment of foundational literacy and numeracy. It's called Learn Nigeria. And the citizen-led assessment started in India, has spread over time to the global south region. And a lot of the countries at the time were doing it in such a way that they collected this data as a way to hold government accountable, advocates, almost anti-government, which worked in their context, but we knew wouldn't work in Nigeria. We had to take a significantly different approach. And so we had to take a participatory approach to not only just designing the assessment itself and the survey tools, but also implementing it. So we work with everyone from the Federal Ministry to the National Bureau of Statistics, state ministries, schools, teachers, so that at the end of the day, the data that this assessment produced is collectively owned. And I think that when it comes to EdTech, there's definitely that sense in which even as you are scoping the challenges that you want to build solutions for, you're not doing it alone. There's an activity we do in our training. It's called Making the Horse Happy. And it's a way of illustrating how, you have a sad horse and you want to make the horse happy, but how do you know what is making the horse sad? You could try a variety of things. So it's about being as participatory and inclusive as possible, all the way from scoping the problem, designing solution to execution. I think it's safe to say in Nigeria the scope of the challenges are such that there is room for everybody, not only to experiment and test your ideas, but there's room to scale. Right, Nigeria has significant challenges not only with access to education, but with the quality of education being delivered. In recent years, we have spent time just on foundational literacy and numeracy, and the results are not. They're not good. The World Bank is quoting 7 out of 10 children in sub-Saharan Africa.
And we say no.
Yeah, our own data tells us that the Nigerian policy, basic education is 9 years, compulsory years of schooling, but as of 2017, 53% of children who have had 9 years of schooling are still unable to read at grade 2 level. So this is the scope of the challenges. We clearly need technology solutions. We can't go to one school, one teacher per time, or one house per time. So the technology would definitely be a part of overhauling the system, of delivering specific successfully tested solutions, to multiple contexts. But I think that the approach needs to be participatory. Everybody included from design all the way to execution, evaluation and reflection, and then back again.
So would you say we are doing enough in socializing or publicizing the available partnerships or partnership networks that people could subscribe to or join? And people here, I mean, people who are already building for EdTech. Are we doing enough? Do you think the TP Centers wannabes and Co-Creation Hub wannabes and every other person is doing enough to let the EdTech organizations know this is what is available? You can come here to get solutions. You can come here to get research that could help you in building, your solutions. For instance, you've done extensive work with Learn Nigeria for financial literacy and numeracy. So do people know that this is happening? Can they come to Utibe and say, Utibe, you've done this work. I don't need to recreate the SEC. I don't need to go around this again. Yeah. Let's just collaborate.
You kind of trapped me with that question. But there's some progress being made. I think Co-Creation Hub is a very good example of that. We had, I think it was a town hall meeting in Abuja a couple months back, where we just chat, right? We chatted about the challenges with, basic education as a tech service provider, as an education researcher and consultant. We are not doing enough yet. There is so much more that can be happening. And specifically to know that, so to be fair to EdTech organizations, they have, they're trying to solve a social problem, but they're also businesses, right? So they need to identify a market, develop a product, and sell that product. But there still needs to be, if you're going to define a market, identify a market as an EdTech organization, you need to really understand the problems. And understand the problems from the perspective of, I've used the term actors, the child, the learners, the children themselves, they're actors in the system, their parents are. I'll give an example. So like I mentioned that we had dabbled into being an EdTech organization ourselves. When the pandemic happened, countries, governments, people scrambled, to respond to the pandemic. With schools being shut down globally, nobody had thought of a scenario where teachers are enabled to access children within the four walls of their classroom, at scale. So one of the things we did was to take our remedial program, a program that already existed but for in-person audiences, and try to distill that content into SMSs, because we knew in Nigeria technology would be a challenge. Access to devices would be a challenge. Access to the internet would be a challenge. So we wanted to do something low-tech. But it turned out that in order for me to do something low-tech, I needed a lot of high-tech support. So I needed to partner with a CRM company, Simple, in Nigeria, to deliver SMSs to parents, at a schedule for 6 to 8 weeks, complemented by an instruction, like a workbook that the children could read, so that the parents knew what the children were doing and were able to support their learning, at home. That's the way that technology saved, that helped my work, that was not necessarily
the way we would typically
do
yes.
it. Exactly. So I think that we do need to have more of those type of synergies, have technology really enter into the space. Sometimes your client is government. Sometimes your client are schools. You know, in Lagos State where we are, for instance, we have a proliferation of private schools.
Okay.
Some of them, and there's a whole market, like different market segments of them. There are the low fee private schools, there are the premium private schools, there are those in the middle, there are those that are completely, mission or faith-based funded. And all these schools represent, a huge portion of our population of school-age children. Nigeria has a challenge with out-of-school children, and we say this a lot. But where are those children? Who knows where they are? Who is tracking them, right? When do they enter or get out of the system? These are problems that technology can solve. So sometimes these schools and associations are your target audience. But if you don't have a sense of how the system connects to one another, it's very difficult to design, solutions and products for the whole system, as opposed to one market, which is parents. Buy this product, subscribe to this.
And the parents cannot always be your only...
there's only so much parents can pay for and subscribe to.
Thank you so much, Utibe, for that response. You really have struck, so many chords. We're not doing enough. So much more can be done. People who are doing things are trying, so there needs to be support. And not just from the TEP centers or the CC hubs. School associations need to play a role as well. Parent associations need to play a role as well to let the EdTech organizations know this is the problem we're having.
Absolutely.
How do you build for us? And schools are saying these are the patterns they are noticing.
Exactly.
How can you build for us?
Yeah.
And even the students.
Absolutely.
Look for a way to get to the students and say this is what they understand as a problem or how they want to learn and how you can build for them. Yes. Thank you, Tibe. And now to my final question, and I'm going to be putting you on the spot.
Sure.
What is the future of EdTech partnerships in Nigeria? And what role will TP be playing in shaping this future?
I love that question. It does put me on the spot, but I really like the topic of today's discussion, sustainable partnership structures. So I think that somebody has to be responsible for creating those platforms, those spaces where everyone feels included enough to participate. That participatory approach, and I think that's something that TEP Center is uniquely positioned to do. We've done it before. We can do it again. Particularly with tech actors. So. What it would look like continuous conversation. It would look like co-creating, which is, something that you understand that. It would look like co-creating. It would look like research, because you can't, how do you ascertain progress if you're not measuring? So data is what will tell us what works and what doesn't work. And, even with collecting data, there's so much application for technology solutions. So I think that platform for continuous engagement is going to be so important, and that platform for participatory or co-creation is going to be so important. We understand what the issues are. I started this year, so this is the African Union's year of education, right? So I started this year in a room with many countries, different priorities, but we're all clear that we want children to be able to read and write at so capabilities, and then you layer on. From foundational literacy and numeracy, you want to also ensure their social, emotional skills, their life skills. You also want advanced levels of education. So once we have a shared understanding of what the priorities are, then we can go into our little corners, and
start innovating.
Exactly, innovating. But then we come back together, to reflect, to execute, and then, so it has to be a continuous process. And of course, this is not something that happens in a vacuum or happens, just organically. It has to be facilitated, and it's something that TEP Center we're definitely, committed to doing. We don't have any other business aside the education business. Partners like Co-Creation Hub definitely bring us into the tech space, and then I think we'll have the responsibility to return the favor and bring more technology, partners into the education space. But I don't see any other way around it. EdTech solution providers have to understand the pain points of the average SUBEB chairman or the director for basic education or the school director for school services or even the school proprietors themselves, right, and teachers. I mean, school proprietors, they respond to a market, they respond to parents. Why is my child not doing well? How do I know what my child is doing? They respond,
and all the comparisons that happen,
right, so there's all of that. So if you don't understand how these challenges interconnect, for different contexts, it would be difficult, to design a solution that really solves a problem and is scalable. This is I think the challenge with tech. You solve problems in small pockets. Scaling it, then we need to. You said something at the beginning that I found very interesting, and it's something that we say to organizations that are planning to scale. You have to test your solutions in the context where it will be scaled, not just in your little lab or in your access, right? So where you don't have access to the internet, or where parents don't have so much funding, or where governments have limited capacity.
How well would that solution
scale? So I think that's where we start from.
Thank you. I put you on the spot and you delivered. We'll keep having conversations. We'll keep looking for little ways to bring, these developers and EdTech organizations into the room. We'll keep looking for ways to bring parents and teachers and even the kids themselves into the room to know their pain points. As you said, scoping the problem and then designing together. Thank you so much, Itube, for such a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely.
And to you, our partners, how do you want to partner to make sure we have effective EdTech solutions that are meeting the learning needs of learners across board? Are you interested in joining the NICE platform or even the viable platform that CC Hub has, and other, partnerships and networks that could help us have more effective EdTech solutions? Simple. Send us an SMS or a WhatsApp message on 0703 165 0809 and we'll plug you to a network that you would love. It's been another amazing episode on the EdTech Mondays Nigeria show. Do well to follow us on Telegram or on WhatsApp on EdTech Mondays Nigeria to join the conversation online. Would love to have you there and hear your take on today's episode. Till next time, I remain Chinyelu Akpa, your host on this show, and it's bye for now.
EdTech Monday is proudly brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.